Awesome, awesome. Well, welcome everybody to the March version of the DUG4GOV Meetup. I'm very excited and happy to have everybody here. Before we get started with today's content, which I hear is jam-packed full of amazing stuff from the city of Columbus, I wanted to do a quick introduction of myself as well as Dynamics User Group. So my name is Liz Hallen. I am the VP here at Dynamics User Group, your host of the DUG4GOV Meetup. We have been doing these meetups for quite some time, so for those of you that have been with us before, thanks for coming back. And for those that are new, I did have a few things that I just wanted to share real quick. So Dynamics User Group, in case you have not heard of this before, we're a little bit newer community in this space, been around with full-time staff for the last 3 years. We offer several different programs for you, for anybody in your company, anything from users, developers, administrators, partners. Everyone's welcome. We offer free membership to the Dynamics User Group. And we just love that everybody is here to educate themselves and to network with each other. We're a big proponent of offering free content and education to everyone in the community to help them really grow in their career and be successful, which is why our membership is individual as well as for free. Now, even though we've been around the last 3 years with full-time staff, we do have quite a bit of history. We started out with it as just an online discussion forum back in 1995, so it has been a while. But since then, we have grown. I think actually we're now over 40,000 community members, which is absolutely fantastic. So in addition to the DUG Meetup that you are on today, we do offer several other programs. One that we are probably the most famous for is our DynamicsCon events and conferences. We just hosted our 5th annual DynamicsCon virtual event about a week and a half ago. I hope that you were able to join us, but if you weren't, the DynamicsCon live event is coming up very soon. We do still have our online discussion forums that we started out with back in 95. They're open and free and are a great resource for you to interact with the community all year round, ask your questions, contribute as an expert, etc. At meetups, as we are here today, we have 33 meetups around the globe in terms of the groups, and they are all meeting sometimes in person, sometimes virtually. So welcome to the DUG4GOV version of that event. And since we do have the city of Columbus on today, and I saw Jody's name, Jody Cronk, and I are, and some other leaders are working on hosting a larger in-person regional event in Columbus, Ohio, in August. So stay tuned for that. We're really excited about that. We do have a pretty robust YouTube channel as well, where you can find free content that has been provided at prior DynamicsCon events. And then our Team Up membership program, which is for our partners. This is an annual partner membership program, which allows our partners to get visibility into our community, but it also from an end user standpoint, is a great place for you to find various different ISV solutions to make you and your Dynamics or Power Platform solution even that much more effective and efficient. As I mentioned, DynamicsCon Virtual just happened about a week and a half ago. Our goal was 7,000 registrants. We had 6,500, so very excited about that. We had a ton of really great content around all the Dynamics 365 products, Dynamics GP, as well as the Power Platform. That content will be up on our YouTube channel here within the next month or so. And we did have the pleasure of joining forces with Microsoft to offer a day 2 as well for the Microsoft Customer Success Day. And hopefully you were able to join us, but if you weren't, again, we'll be posting all of those sessions and those recordings of those sessions, as well as some PowerPoint decks up on our website and the YouTube channel. Our in-person event will be in Scottsdale, Arizona, May 22nd to the 25th. And I do have a coupon code here on the screen for all of our wonderful meetup attendees. So if you're able to join us in Scottsdale, please use Meetup Cool Kid 50 to get $50 off of your registration price. And our prices will be going up here shortly, so I would encourage you to get registered now. And if you haven't heard, our host hotel is actually sold out of rooms, so it's going to be a very amazing and lively event. That is all that I have for Doug. So Mary, I will pass it over to you to talk a little bit more about what's coming up for DUG4GOV.
Great. Thanks, Liz.
Mm-hmm.
So Mary Brummer from Microsoft. I am a business applications specialist, and I am the leader of DUG4GOV. So DUG4GOV is a nationwide user group for individuals in state and local government who want to understand and learn more about Dynamics and Power Platform. So just really happy to have you guys here. Super happy to have City of Columbus here today to tell us about their Dynamics and Power Platform journey. Next DUG4GOV is April 25th, which is always the fourth Tuesday of every month, same time. And that content is going to be about Dynamics, the Digital Contact Center, and ChatGPT, and kind of have a real good, robust conversation about ChatGPT and how it relates to business applications at Microsoft. So that should be really great. And then we are hosting our first DUG4GOV in-person event on that same day from 9 to 11, April 25th. And that is going to be in the Austin, Texas Microsoft office. So I'll be sending out invites for that as well. But if anybody has any questions about, you can always email me, contact me. Or if anybody would like to do a DUG4GOV session in their city and want to host it, please reach out. And I can help you coordinate that and help drive attendance for local DUG4GOV meetups as well. So today I'm really excited about City of Columbus, so I'm going to hand it over to them in just a minute, but please put your questions in the chat as they come up. They may take breaks periodically and answer questions as they go, or they might just hold them all to the end. They have got a lot of really great content to share with us today and demos, so we'll just see how they get to the questions. So with that, I would like to introduce you to Tom and Cheryl with the City of Columbus, and Prarup with OnActuate, who is their implementation specialist and their partner when it comes to all things Dynamics and Power Platform. So Tom, I'll hand it off to you.
Great. Thank you, Mary. Everybody can see the slides?
Yes, we can.
All right, great. So I did one thing right today. I can take a break after this. So today we want to talk to you about the power of the platform. So our journey with Dynamics 365, when we were an AX 2012 user, and we came over and migrated to Dynamics 365, it wasn't just about moving to the latest software. It wasn't just about being operationally sound. We wanted to take advantage of the cloud. We wanted to take advantage of the tools that you were provided as part of your 365 experience. We set up an Azure tenant. We're using some features in that Azure tenant and Power Apps to do some fun things with publicly available information. And we, after we went live in Dynamics 365, we took our public pages and then we converted the data portion of it to use a feature called dual write that Cheryl's going to tell you about. And then we also did something with voting transparency to share some information about that. So we'll go through some introductions today. We'll talk about our Columbus Vendor Services public bid portal and how we use dual write to transfer the data over and share that publicly without having to have a login to Dynamics and do some public bid advertisement and share what it is that the city's buying. The other thing that we have done, we're launching that starting in April, is a transparency portal itself where we can share information for revenue, expenses, purchase orders, and payments. We can offer data sets for common public records requests that we get. And we have added a chat bot to this site to help answer questions about the site and its contents. So we're going to share that today as well. So today we're going to have Cheryl Reed. She's a Dynamics Solution Manager from the City of Columbus. She works with me. I'm Tom Noorkah. I'm the Director of Financial Systems for the City of Columbus. So Dynamics is one of the multiple enterprise financial systems that my group supports. And Priyop Singh is a lead technical architect on Actuate, and he helped us as we conceptualized what we wanted to do, and he helped us build it. And so he'll chime in and he'll clean up all the mess that I make as we talk about the transparency portal. So we'll hand it over to Cheryl. And Cheryl, you want to go ahead and tell them a little bit about Columbus Vendor Services and our public bid portal, please.
Good morning, everybody. Like Tom said, we're going to talk about our Columbus Vendor Service solution this morning. Next slide. So we had several goals. So why did we build this? So Columbus Vendor Services, we wanted to be able to have a public-facing site, not only for our vendors, but our constituents, so that they could view our open request for quotations, including any attachments that might have been included in that, our closed request for quotations for historical purposes, and then also to view bid tabulations for closed request for quotations. In addition, we want to provide the ability to have a vendor be able to sign up with the City of Columbus, and with D365 and Logic Apps, we've actually fully automated this. So a vendor can go to our website, enter in a few basic details, we validate their email address, we walk them through the registration process, and probably within 10 to 15 minutes total, they'll actually have access to vendor collaboration. So once they log into vendor collaboration, this is where they'll be able to bid on our RFQs. We do use sealed bidding here at the City of Columbus, so any bids that are submitted, no one within the city can see pricing or see attachments. Those are all encrypted until the point where an RFQ is unsealed. So that is definitely a core component of our solution. In addition, they can view PO confirmations. They can update their vendor information, so update email addresses, maybe add a remittance address. They can view payment information and a number of other items as well. In addition, we also use Columbus Vendor Services as an area to provide them self-service help, which includes videos, user guides, contact information. And one thing I did want to point out is with our solution, and for many, many years, but long before I joined the City of Columbus, the city only accepts online bids for RFQs, so there's no paper. And it's been like this, like I said, for many years. The vendors are required to go in and use Columbus Vendor Services to bid on goods and services. Next slide, Tom. So here's an example of the homepage, the public page for Columbus Vendor Services. Again, no login is required. From looking on the left-hand side, we can see we currently have 128 open requests for quotations. Budget just passed last month, so this is a little bit higher than our average. We do typically, though, have between 80 and 90 open requests for quotations on any given day. And then our closed requests for quotations, you can see there are 5,534 that have occurred within the last 2 years. We put 2 years out here. That not only vendors but also constituents can go look at, and they can see who actually submitted a bid, they can see whose bid was accepted, and any additional details that have been provided for the RFQ. So here's an example of what one of our requests for quotations look like. So we have some general details at the top, obviously the solicitation number, the RFQ number. In this particular case, we can see the document title is for Care Awards 2023. My requesting department is Health. I've got an expiration date on there as to when my bid needs to be submitted, as well as an intended delivery date and a delivery address. In the middle there's a section for description. This particular request for quotation didn't give a detailed description, but a number of them do. Right below that, we can see there are 2 attachments, 2023 specs, as well as the engraving text for these particular awards. The links are on the right-hand side so that they can look at those additional documents. And then down at the bottom, we have the line details. In this case, only one. It's a plaque for Care Awards. We're looking for 6 each. Now, it's important to note this is all the public page, so there's no no authentication required for them to go out, find this information, look at the attachments. Next slide. And so this is just a quick screenshot of vendor collaboration, which is also obviously a very key component of the solution. This would be a vendor who is registered with the City of Columbus So they've been able to authenticate and log in to D365, specifically the vendor collaboration module. And this is just a overview of the different options they have. So contract compliance, invoicing, vendor bidding, reviewing purchase order confirmations, updating their vendor information, or specifically looking at payments. So our overall solution has quite a few components. The Columbus Vendor Service page that we looked at a minute ago is a Power Portal page now. I guess it's just a Power page now. I think they're going through some renaming. We know it as Power Apps, so you'll hear us refer to that quite a bit. We do use Logic Apps for vendor registration. The Dataverse, obviously that's where our D365 data, specifically our RFQ information, is maintained or sitting, storing. And then Dual Write, which is the integration between the Finance and Operations app and Dataverse. You'll notice that it says bi-directional integration. That is true. Right now we are basically going one direction with our current solution. And then of course D365 vendor collaboration so that the vendor can actually submit bids for goods and services needed by the city. So here's kind of an overview, give you a visual of how this all fits together. On the left-hand top side, obviously predominantly vendors would be coming to our website for either self-registration or they want to look at the bids that are, the opportunities that are open currently with the city, or view bid tabulations to see what their competitors have maybe bid on previously, and again look at purchase orders. So they're doing all that through this is Power Portal, this is our vendor services page. In the middle of the screen there, that's Logic Apps, which is used again for registration. We spend a lot of time doing processing registrations manually in DAX 2012 in our former solution. So with 365, as I said, this is driven by Logic Apps and is to a point where it's automated and vendors can really register at 3 a.m. In the morning if they choose to, and get access to the site without necessarily a City of Columbus individual needing to touch that. So obviously there are a number of validations that are put in place to make sure those registrations are successful. And then at the bottom of the screen we have D365, front of finance and supply chain. This not only will be used by our vendors on the vendor collaboration side, but most importantly by city users who are going to author and publish those RFQs, maintain the vendor bids, do their evaluations, and ultimately accept bids or award bids for vendors. And so on the right-hand side, in between 365 and the Dataverse, you'll see our little symbol there for dual write. And really, as soon as someone, we call it publish or sends the RFQ, that is when the dual write step kicks in and basically syncs that information with our Dataverse and ultimately displays it on the portal. So from the time that I publish an RFQ, typically by the time that I can get to Columbus Vendor Services and search for that RFQ number, the information is already synced. So it really is near real time in almost all instances. Next page. All right, so I probably could fill the whole hour with things to know and lessons learned, but I've just got a few key slides here, things I want to share today. Expect challenges. You will have them. You probably don't want to aim for implementing dual write in a week. Have a very comprehensive test plan. I think at the end of the day, we ended up with 100 plus test scripts that we ran through multiple times as part of our test plan. That is definitely key. And then work with your fast track architect to review your proposed solution. Their feedback is invaluable. They'll review your solution, give recommendations. If you're doing something that they really think is going to cause you issues down the road, they will be quick to advise on that. And all the information that we've received has definitely been invaluable to us and got us to the solution we have today. All right, so then a couple more things to know. Know your data volume per outbound call. So outbound call, essentially, I mentioned earlier when I publish that RFQ, that's when dual write kicks in and it's syncing with the Dataverse. That is your outbound call. and it's important to note that dual write is designed and intended for a short burst of data. This is something that I didn't quite understand as well as maybe I should have when we started the project. In our case, it's understanding if we're sending on average 1,000 RFQ lines per RFQ, which is not really short bursts of data, if you will, versus 20 lines of data. Knowing that information not only is going to help you determine if dual write is the right solution, but it's also going to help you manage that solution as well. So that's critical. Another thing I would recommend is there is an option for table map health check, which will do analysis on what you're trying to share or sync, I should say, through dual write. So it's going to provide you a number of recommendations. It's going to come in the form of, informational messages, warnings, or errors, and then obviously you can review those items and take the appropriate actions. Next slide. And then know and analyze your data. I can't stress this enough. This is partly how we arrived at 100 plus test cases to ensure dual write worked as intended. You will encounter things you maybe didn't expect to encounter when you first started. So as an example, we encountered fields in D365 that actually allowed for more data entry or entry of more characters than the Dataverse allowed. And obviously that's going to cause you some sync issues. Another recommendation is to ensure that only relevant fields and data sources are part of the entities that are participating in dual write. You want to, just like anything else, you want to keep it streamlined. You don't want to send access data that you don't really have a need for. Because that's just going to lead to unintended problems. So in both of these situations, it can lead to some sync issues. And then finally, filtering your data sources is recommended. This ensures that only the relevant records that you need to, in our case, share on Columbus Vendor Services, that only those relevant records are triggered for dual write transmission from D365 to the Dataverse. And then finally, so make sure that you understand dual write timeout and potential impact on data. So those outbound calls that I mentioned a couple slides ago, those typically time out after 2 minutes. This is not something that can be configured by the end user. So that means that if I publish an RFQ, all of that information needs to be able to send or sync, if you will, through the outbound call within 2 minutes. And if I have large, exorbitant amounts of data, maybe even data that I don't really actually need in the Dataverse, you could run into issues with that. And then the other thing to be aware of too is just that user browser closure. If your user publishes an RFQ and then they immediately close their screen while D365 says it's still processing, that's going to cause issues with your dual write outbound call. And, again, in both scenarios above, this can cause inconsistencies between what you see in finance and operations in the Dataverse. And then finally, I've just compiled a short list here. I do believe we'll be sharing this slide after a presentation today. So I've compiled just some interesting resource points to review, a couple on sealed bidding for RFQs if you're in need of wanting to make sure that no one can see that data in your RFQs before you get to your close date or your bid opening date. Some links about the Dataverse, dual write, vendor collaboration, specifically security roles. We've had a lot of questions on that from other entities in the past, so I've included that link. Finally, a link to Columbus Vendor Services if you want to come check us out, and then a link on Logic Apps. And so thank you very much. I appreciate your time today. I will turn it back over to Tom.
Okay, great. Looks like Doug has answered most of the questions in the chat, and so we can move on. I will say that the vendor collaboration feature, we use the Key Vault in Azure to encrypt our sealed bids. So I'm not sure how that will work with an on-prem version of vendor collaboration. But I imagine in some sort of hybrid solution, it could work that way. So today, we also wanted to share with you another area that we're using Power Apps and Power Apps portals to create the pages to do something for Transparency Portal. And Transparency Portal was intended to provide a little more spice to the way that we share our data. If you think about like our annual comprehensive financial reports, some of the more accounting level reports, that's like the parsley of spices. And so we wanted to try to do something a little bit more exciting on our sites. So we created what we call a transparency portal. And what we want to do is we wanted to provide for our citizens or for interested parties, we wanted to provide something where we could share the information externally of the city and do it in a little bit more exciting way. So this is a jointly developed site between Columbus and our partner on Actuate using features from Dynamics 365 Finance and our Power Platform tools. So much like the publicly available bids where we advertise online and we use Do It Right, we're leveraging both the data that we have in our operational finance system and using the tool sets. We wanted to provide, it says real time, but I'm going more near time access to public data where we're writing the data over somewhere else so we're not hitting directly against our operational data. And then it's giving us the opportunity to smooth out that data or make it in a little bit way to make it more presentable. We wanted to provide more intuitive reports, interactive visualizations that people could come in, they could explore. One visualization could replace 30 or 40 different report flavors, right? Maybe even 100. So we wanted to make it so that as people had questions, they could kind of explore and be intellectually curious and see what we're trying to share, but in the way that they want to consume it. But we also get commonly requested public records requests where they ask us for electronic copies of our records. Things like, I want a list of all the purchase orders that you created last year. I want to know how much you spent with this particular construction company. How much did you spend on personnel expenses in the police department last month? So we wanted to be able to provide this, but also provide it in an electronic way where people could download the data and they could do things with it that they needed. And we could just, when we get the public records request, we could just kind of point them and say, oh, yeah, that information is available on our data hub. Go download it. We wanted to make sure it was scalable. So if we're going to put this out and make it available for the public, we wanted it to be in familiar tools, things that we were going to be using and doing with other parts of our Dynamics experience. So we wanted to have a consistency. And we wanted something that we just wouldn't use with our Dynamics 365 data. We plan to add other data sources. We just started with D365 because that was already all available in the Azure Power Platform, and that's what we were the most familiar with. And then, we wanted to be secure and accessible from any device. We wanted to pay attention to things like accessibility and some other areas. And so we were able to start with these tools and then augment them with some other items. So the other thing is when you share reports or data to the public, the big fear is they're not going to understand it, right? You need to provide some context, answer some questions that the reader might have or you anticipate that they have. It could be something as simple as what's a fund? What's an encumbrance? Why do you call your checks warrants, the City of Columbus? Where can we find particular data? Like, I want to know how much you spent on this. I want, okay, well, that's an expenditure, but maybe they don't use that same language. We're not there to answer their questions or provide it because we're providing this, self-service. So we wanted to do and add some ways to do it. And rather than having a really long, frequently asked questions page that after you get past number 3, people won't search or read it, we decided to try to add in a bot, so a chat bot, and we called her Claire. Claire is short for Clarity. and we wanted to be able to answer some questions that we anticipated, but we also wanted something smart enough that it could learn later. So Claire can answer the questions. Claire is an AI-powered bot, so Claire will have some simple answers that we can actually tree out and provide follow-up and context to the questions, or clarify, are you asking this or are you asking this? And all this is built using the Microsoft Power Virtual Agent. And as you are collecting these questions, you can use the analytics in the Power PVA to basically look and identify what topics there might be, have it learn a little bit, and also to provide some context. So one of the things that PVA provided that we were interested in is topic overlap. You may use some of the same words or keywords or topics that you trigger, and it can kind of figure out or ask a question to clarify to keep if you use some of the same keywords and they overlapped a little bit. For the personalization, it can remember the previous question, it can remember some of the things, and so it can kind of help guide the question and answer session. We wanted it to learn, we wanted it to continuously improve. We have a chatbot on one of our other sites, but that chatbot doesn't have the AI component, so we have to regularly review the questions that are asked, the words that are used, and we have to keep pumping and feeding those topics in it for it to get any smarter. So this is something that we'll learn and get better over time as people use it. And it can also look at, when you look at the analytics for your chatbot, it can suggest to you, you could really build a topic about this and branch this out so that people will understand it better. As far as our data insights, this is where we went from parsley to put a little pepper in our gumbo. So, this is a cayenne pepper, more of an attempt to share the same information, but in a different way that people might be able to consume it a little bit different. So we used Power BI and published public links to share these on our pages. And we were able to get somewhat creative and deliver not only the visualizations, but also try to provide some contextual and supplemental information in the Power BI portal. One of the things that we decided and we're bouncing around was when we said near time, how near time do we want to share this information? And so for revenue and expenditure data, we decided that we would publish as of the last full month to coincide with more month end, so that if you came in and ran something and looked at something in the course of the month, you would get consistent information after month end close. Other data such as purchase orders or checks and some of this other information, that's happening every day, and we wanted that to be more up to date. So we write those over and we publish those on a nightly basis. Besides the visualizations, as I said, we wanted researchers or interested parties that might want just a copy of the electronic records. We wanted to share, and this is a partner enhancement from Actuate, where we are offering the opportunity to download copies of our featured data sets. And this way we can provide some information, but we wanted to be able to give them, again, some idea of what is this information used for, or what does it mean. So we have this data hub, but within this data hub, we also are sharing not only the data, but we have a data dictionary to explain the fields and what type of data types they are. And for those, that way we maybe more complex people like researchers that are taking this information and they're doing some sort of data mining, they can do a little bit more advanced type of work with it. We also provided a data entity diagram so that if you wanted to try to link some of the data up with other pieces of the data where we haven't done it completely, that you're able to download the various data sets, but you can understand how the data sets interact. So we provide some common master tables for main accounts and financial dimensions, and we have some denormalized versions where we've included some information that maybe isn't in the standard data entity, but we've been able to massage that and create a better view of that for our visualizations. And so here, before you download, we did try to give them the opportunity to explore the data. So there's a data explorer where you can visualize, you can open it up, you can see it, not in the Power BI way, but in more of the familiar tables and rows kind of grid. We are allowing them to download in character separated values. And we also have a JSON link here where we did have to decide as we were building out these data sets, how big of a data set do we really want to provide? We have information in Dynamics going back to 2016. So we decided that we would provide that information, but we would do it on an annual fiscal year basis. The primary driver for that was really making it so it was consumable and manageable. So when you open the data entities, you can actually, not have to wait an hour and a half to see them. So it's we're trying to render something, more in the 3 to 10 second, or take a long time to download the data sets. So we broke them in more manageable chunks. So it's kind of like the adage of, how do you eat an elephant? You eat it one bite at a time. So we at least gave you a plateful by fiscal year. We did want to focus on some accessibility features. So we did look at some language type of things. So on Actuate helped us use a standard tool that many of us use, Google Translate, to translate the site into languages. So where we have instructions, frequently asked questions, those types of items will have Google Translate. Google Translate does not work on our Power BI visualizations. Those are still in English and as the visualization is built. We gave them an option for text only, which I'm not sure how much we'll use this or people will use it, but we did do that, but it kind of defeats the purpose of having a visualization site. But we did offer it just to see. Or if somebody was maybe had some low bandwidth options and they wanted to have it a little less prettied up. The other thing that we did is we used Firefox, and sorry Microsoft, but it has a browser features in it called Inspect Accessibility Properties that we turned on. And then we could do color vision simulation for testing just overall of our website and see how does it appear for different types of color blindness or for people that had contrast challenges. And, for the most part, we just try to do it like any other website, keep it clean, avoid white lettering on dark backgrounds for the whole site to make it easier on the eyes, also for those contrast issues, except for we really wanted to draw prominence. And so we built this with our partner where we are taking system data. And we started out with 365, but it really is agnostic. If you can get the data in some way, we can take that data from anywhere. We put it into a data lake. We take that and we use the data factory to build those data sets for downloads, to populate our Dataverse, which in this case is just a SQL database, but with views and ways that we can join the things. So then we can turn around and make these into Power BI reports. So with me today is Prayup Singh, and he's with our partner, and he's going to correct all the errors I made in explaining this, and he's also going to get you a little bit more in depth on it. Prayup, you want to take it away?
Sure, thanks, Tom. And I think you explained everything brilliantly, no errors there so far. So just behind the scene, this is more technical stuff here. But what we are doing is, so on Actuate has a solution we call as the data confluence and insights. So what we do is we identify a data source. And in this case, we have the City of Columbus Dynamics FNSC instance. And using the plugin, which is the export to data lake, we have identified the tables that are required for the visualizations. We enable those tables. And then the data is exported to the data lake. And so once the data has moved from Dynamics 365 to data lake, after that, we use certain data Azure data services like the data factory. We have written certain pipelines which pick data from the data lake, does some sort of transformation, some joins, whatever is required, and then that data is pushed onto the Azure SQL data warehouse. Now, once the data is there in the SQL warehouse, this is where our Power BI connects to. And after connecting to the to Azure Data SQL warehouse, they are able to build their visualizations. Next report. Next slide, please. Yeah. So this is the actual architecture. Uh, the first is the enterprise applications. As you can see, we have right now Dynamics FNSC as the data source, but we are also working as the next phase of the project. Since Tom mentioned that this is a scalable project so that we can get data from other data sources, other applications in the City of Columbus ecosystem. So we are looking at Ceridian, getting the HCM data from Ceridian into for visualization. And also down the line, we will be looking at certain legacy data sources which City might have. It can be in the form of Excel sheets, or it can be Access databases or Oracle, or any of your legacy systems where you just have data lying there and there are no more live transactions happening. So we pick up all this data and we move it to the staging area, which is the data lake Gen 2 storage in the Azure tenant of City of Columbus. And once this data is in data lake, this is a one-way operation. The data is flowing from the Dynamics FNSC into the data lake, and the data is immutable here in the sense that you cannot go in to the data lake and change anything there. Everything is being driven from the source applications, which is the Dynamics FNSC. Once we have the data in the data lake Gen 2 storage, the next step is using the Azure Data Lake Factory. We read this data, we pick up this data, we do certain transformations, we pick up the relevant data that is required, and then we push it out to the Azure Data SQL databases. Now, we have written Azure Data Factory pipelines, and they run on a predetermined schedule or frequency. Like Tom was mentioning, there are certain data sets that need to be refreshed at the month end. So depending on what is the requirement, we run these pipelines and then migrate the data over from Data Factory into the data warehouse. Once the data is available in our Azure SQL databases, City has their own experts who have built visualization with help from us. And using Power BI, they connect to these data warehouse entities, pick up the data, and then that data is available for the end users to consume. Now, how these Power BIs are consumed by the end users, in order to facilitate that is where the whole transparency portal comes into picture. That's built using the Power Platform, Power Portal, and the Power BI pages, Power BI dashboards are just embedded inside the Power Portal pages. That's all I have. Thanks, Tom. Back to you.
All right, thank you. So we're going to try a quick demo. So this is our development site, so don't write down the URL. I'll give you the actual URL that we're publishing to in production in a moment. But we have created some things and usability items. So here's where you can see the different areas that we are going to be sharing publicly, expenditures, revenues, payments, and some information about our checks and POs. This is where we have our data hub, and we have information about the data entity and diagrams. We have a frequently asked questions page. We have some other help that we can talk about. But one of the things you'll see in the frequently is like try to use Claire, right? So if you look at Claire and Claire can say, are you looking for, these types of things? So you can build out trees, you can do some different items, you can explain, what the expenditure is, how to use it, those types of items. So you can ask Claire different questions, And as I said, as we build it, we'll get smarter with it. Claire will get smarter on its own, and we'll move through those items. So we tried not to put a lot of the information in the frequently asked questions because we find people don't use things when you have a lot of verbiage there. But the other thing we did on the home was we have this guided self-service kind of to walk you through the different steps in the information and explain a little bit about the site. And this is a partner enhancement. This was a little bit, different than what you do in the standardized pool, but it'll take you through the different areas. And here's where we've explained, where, we tried to use some plain text things and explain things where they are. It keeps walking you through the site. We have a footer. We have a public website that we maintain, so we did link back to that site. So we have things within the policy, within the site itself, but we also have links back to our other areas. Contact information, right? Just to explain where different things are, and again, how to use it. We did put links back to our Parsley in some of our more boring, non-interactive things that the city does. We did put a link back in here, but we are able to do some fun things and link into different areas. So we have some disclaimers here. It says, these are on an unaudited basis. We're not using GAAP, but you can do some interactive things with the site, and you'll see just using the power of Power BI how we're able to highlight and change different areas. We were able to link out and explain things about the reports with the visualizations and do different things. One thing that I thought was really nice that we added from the suggestion was a way to clear the filters and get back. So if you found yourself and you went down a rabbit hole, the easy way to get back is you can always reset if you had filtered out different items. So if you had gotten yourself really down a rabbit hole, gotten yourself buried into the site, that you could quickly go back and get an overall view. But again, we've got sliders here so you can look at data, over a period of time if you want to. We've got filters so that you can zero in on what you're looking for. If you want to actually download the data, one thing that we didn't find in the Power BI functionality was a quick export. You can try to put these things in. You can try to do some downloads, but we found that depending on how you had it collapsed and everything, it made it a little bit more difficult. So we did just provide a link within our visualization on getting over to, okay, well, you want to see this data set in the data hub, you can come over here and you can get your data set that you need. As I said, it wasn't quite ready for prime time because there we go. We found a bug on the site there. So we'll have to go back and correct that. But you can see here we did put in some things. Hey, it's a pretty large data set when you ask for all the data, for the year. So it may take a little bit of time, but it is interactive. You can put in things and search for things, and it'll help you narrow it down quickly as you're doing it. If you're looking for certain areas, but we also still have the ability for you to download that in CSV if you want to. And again, breaking those down out by fiscal years allowed us to get a fairly quick download there to provide the information that they were looking for. So that is the transparency portal for the City of Columbus. Back to our PowerPoint. So we are going to include some information on how to contact us. So if you have some questions about why it is that we chose to do a certain thing, why we chose a certain tool set, the thing that Cheryl showed today, the city in one way or another, we've been publishing our bids to the web since 2002. We've been doing online interactive registration of vendors since 2004. It was very important for us to have reduced the barriers to entry to get people to register, but it was also important to us to be open and transparent and publicly advertise these items. When we moved from AX 2012 to Dynamics 365, it did not have the public option anymore. So we use these tools, Cheryl, and on Actuate to build out that public portal, but we use tools that we were going to use over and over again in the Power Platform. And like Cheryl, we'll provide the copy of the presentation, and we have links to the different items that we needed to use or we referenced in the course of this. So I'm going to check the chat and see if there are any questions in the chat.
Tom, I think we've covered them all, just kind of scrolling through.
Okay. If there are any other questions regarding the sites, if you want to raise your hand, we can possibly do some quick off-the-cuff ones, and if not, we'll close it out.
I have a question.
Sure.
Wondering what, I know that you use your partner, which is great, but tell us how you staff internally. Like what kind of resources from an IT and a business perspective do you have? How do you train those people? How do you keep them current? All of, those good things. So our other customers can understand how you guys are doing that.
As far as staying current and training, we do take advantage of user groups. We do use the Microsoft Learn. You'll see a lot of the links that we put in for are from there. We will also discuss it with our partner. We will talk about certain strategies that we're looking for, and we'll work through those types of items, and they'll provide us quite a few suggestions. And so by having a partner that knows the product, knows more than just a piece of the product, knows more than just public sector even, we're able to do some different items that way. The other part of it as a structure is we're pretty lean. So you have me who I oversee multiple systems, and I have dabble and work within those things. The chatbot was easy enough that even I could do it. So we went in and used those types of items. So we'll start with but each of our applications that for the areas that report to me, they have a solution owner, and that would be Cheryl. And so Cheryl is our Dynamics 365 solution owner for the entire city of Columbus and for our enterprise. And she works through the day-to-day management, the planning and the strategy for the year of what we're going to address and what features we're going to test and roll out. She does the release management, test plans. And then she has a staff of 2, soon to grow to 3, so that's not very large, right? And those people are more business system analysts, and they report to Cheryl, and they'll do the tier 1 support, so the internal support within the organization. They will, we have a ticketing system within the city of Columbus. They'll answer tickets. How do I do this invoice? Or I keep entering in this invoice and it won't give it to me because it says I haven't received it yet. What does that mean? And so we will answer those questions on a daily basis. Those people will divide within the system and focus on areas of functionality. So we have somebody that's more versed in accounts payable, purchase orders, the procurement side. We have somebody that's more versed in accounts receivable. We are using commerce and point of sale for our point of sale solution. And so that person will work with the end user customers in those areas, and then they'll do some of the special projects as we roll things out across the city. So that's how we're structured, and then we rely some on our partner for staff augmentation, for some technical resources above and beyond what we're capable of doing ourselves. So with a small staff like that we have, we do contract out and augment our staff through with OnActuate for some additional functional and technical resources to assist us with identifying bugs with Microsoft support. So if we try to answer internal questions, we try to reproduce something, we see that it's just not in our particular version, but we reproduce that with our partner in the U.S. public sector version. Then we will file a Microsoft ticket, and we'll work that jointly between us and our partner with Microsoft to get the bug really item and built. So that's a very long-winded answer. Hopefully that explained our structure.
Yeah, that's great. And what I really loved there is it's really important, and I think that's part of your success, is to have a really strong partner, the customer themselves, and Microsoft. It's really a three-way partnership, right? And that's really going to kind of bring that success to your organization. So I just really want to, thank OnActuate and other partners we have for really, really supporting our customers in Microsoft. So I think there are a few questions coming up. So one was around implementation costs. So I know, what's the rough cost to implement something like this? That's kind of a loaded question, because these are years of costs and lots of, innovation over the years. But how would you kind of answer that question, Tom?
There are some items here where we did have to, we had to procure some Power BI professional licenses for sharing those items. So, but at the cost of we don't have that many to start with. We have one person working on it. I think we have a total of 5 Power BI professional licenses right now. For the, a lot of it's going to relate to how big do you build, how much do you build for the Azure side of it. We haven't been in production yet to look at what the cost of those are. There wasn't much additional licensing we had to do for, we did have to do some Power Apps portal licensing. Again, these are fairly small. You can go to Azure and you can use the pricing calculator for those. And then it's really up to you about how you want to build the content. We decided we weren't large enough and it was new enough that we wanted to leverage our partner. So we worked with our partner on a model of how that we were going to build this. And you can either pay for things like through the standard professional services rates with your partner. We decided to do more of a subscription, smooth out the cost. We like budget certainty. And so we're doing a monthly payment type of breakdown over the course of the next couple of years because, like as I said, they added content above and beyond what we were using just in the Power Platform, and they add those things. So it's really, it wasn't that expensive, to be honest with you. And you can use all these tools and you could get this up, and it's really how much of your time can you invest in it, or if you have to rent the time like we did.
Right. Thanks, Tom, Cheryl, and Pyroop. It was just really, really great. I learned so much. Thank you. I feel like I've been around this for a long time, and I still learned a lot of really great things today. So thank you so much for your time today. Thanks, everyone, for attending. I know it's the top of the hour, so we need to wrap. We will put the recording on our DUG4GOV YouTube site, and I will send an email to everybody on the call today with the recording link, as well as the materials that the City of Columbus will share with us. So again, thank you all so much. Thank you for sharing with the community. We really, really appreciate it. Great. Thanks, everyone. See you next month.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.